Well, hey, I'm back. We're on chapter 47 of Treasure Hunters All American Adventure. So let's just hop right back in. Here we go. Those old guys must have called her, said Tommy, examining the remnants of the half eaten sandwich sitting on a work table. The steak on this thing is still warm. The cheese, too. The rolls, they're kind of soft and squishy. Tommy, said Storm, shaking her head. Step away from that half eaten cheesesteak. But, Thomas, he shook his head. Fine, said Tommy, whatever. So, this is super bad luck, said Beck. Miss Buffont was our only lead, and she vanishes? Yes, it is, indeed. Unfortunate that Miss Buffont is not here to answer our direct questions, said Uncle Richie, his eyes flitting around the gallery, taking in all of the artwork, of course. Most of it was contemporary, lots of paint splashes and weird geometric shapes. We should be back in DC, said Beck, helping Mom and Dad. Yeah, I said, the whole expedition has been a waste of time. California, Virginia, Boston, Philadelphia, and nothing to show for it. Sort of like whatever happened down in Australia. I beg your pardon, said Uncle Richie. We heard Dr. Hingelbert talking, Uncle Richie, back in Washington, outside the bookstore. I chimed in. He said you donated a bunch of so called treasures to a museum in Australia. And then you had to take them all back because they were fakes. If only someone would admit the same thing about these Bill of Rights that Professor Hingelbert keeps finding, said Storm. Uncle Richie, said Tommy super seriously, we like you. We totally like you, but you are a true treasure hunter. Or are you a total phony? Uncle Richie grimaced. I'd always hoped I'd never have to discuss this matter with you kids. Well, why not? Said Storm. I feared you might find it traumatic. Hey, if it's the truth, we can handle it. So, what happened in Australia? I asked. Uncle Richie sat down on a very modern looking chair, or it could have been a splendid sculpture. It's hard to tell. Well, your parents and I thought it best that we keep this a secret. Well, secret. This all happened 13 or more years ago. You, Thomas, were, I think, 4, and Storm, was a newborn infant. Your mother and father were only just becoming famous. They had discovered a pair of sunken ships off the coast of Florida. Everyone assumed they had struck it rich. They had, of course, but translating treasure into wealth takes time. However, the kidnappers didn't believe them when your parents tried to explain that they didn't have $1 million immediately on hand for ransom. Wait a second, said Tommy. Who were they trying to ransom? Yeah, I said. Who got kidnapped? Uncle Richie pursed his lips, considered his answer. Thomas and Stephanie. No way! I don't remember that. Well, I'm glad, said Uncle Richie. The whole ugly episode would be so much worse if you did. That's why we never told you or Storm what happened to you when you were so young. Anyway, Special Agent McKenna was working the kidnapping case for the FBI out of their New York office. Your mother suggested he contact me to see if I could come up with the money for the ransom. I had just donated a treasure trove to a museum down under. I asked for it back, pretended that it was all fake and that I was an embarrassing fraud. I then sold the merchandise to the highest bidders and easily raised the ransom money. Whoa, said Tommy. sounding a rather stunned. That's why Special Agent McKenna owed you a favor. And why you called Storm Stephanie when you joined us in DC. Uncle Richie nodded. The FBI used the ransom money as bait, and they caught the kidnappers. I could live with the shame of the false story of what happened in Australia if it meant Tommy and Storm would be home safe and sound. You are so cool, said Beck. Then she more or less leaped over the room and hugged him. Pretty cool uncle, huh? She hugged Uncle Richie tight. I joined in too. And so did Tommy and Storm. Uncle Richie, said Storm when we broke out of our group hug. Yes, Storm. You can call me Stephanie anytime you want. You saved our lives. Uncle Richie grinned. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. But now we need to snoop around. There's a treasure to be hunted in this art gallery. I can sense it. Spread out, children. Look in every nook and cranny. Try the walls for secret panels, like we did at the mansion on O Street. This expedition is not over yet. We spread out. We searched the nooks and crannies. We probed for secret passageways, and we found nothing. For an hour. And then Tommy yawned and leaned against a very white wall. And it swung open. You guys, he called out. I might have found something. We all joined him and stepped into a black and empty space where, even though we couldn't see anything, we were bombarded by smells. Turpentine, canvas, wood, glue. Uncle Richie dug out his phone and fired up the flashlight feature. Its beam swung through the darkness, illuminating a whole lot of nothing. Until it spotlit a row of oil paintings stacked against a far wall. And right there at the head of the line was Vermeer's The Concert. The most valuable stolen painting in the world. Chapter 48. I shouted. The FBI's been searching for this painting for more than 30 years, and we found it in one day, cried Beck, slapping me a high five. Excuse me. One day, said Storm, not sounding nearly as enthusiastic as Beck and me. In fact, she sounded serious. She also had a super serious look on her face. There was a lot of squinting and brow frowning involved. We could call that FBI dude, said Tommy. Collect the reward. $5 million is nothing to sneeze at. Unless you know you're allergic to money, which, hello, I totally am not. Beck, our resident art expert, bent down to examine it more closely. This is so beautiful. Look at those masterful brushstrokes, the purity of light and form conveying a timeless sense of dignity. The piano looks pretty cool too, said Tommy, but the girl playing it, she could have a better hairdo. Actually, Tommy, that's a harpsichord, not a piano, said Storm. I looked over at Uncle Richie. He had Storm's serious, pained expression on his face, too. He was also stroking his chin. So Storm started stroking hers. Those two were definitely related. You sure we shouldn't do the deal with the enlightened ones, Uncle Richie, said Tommy. Their reward offer is way bigger. Very sure, said Uncle Richie. I could tell his mind was somewhere else. Hey, I said, maybe Miss Buffont has some more of the stolen Boston paintings stashed in here, too. Way to think, little bro, said Tommy. He and I started flipping through the line of oil paintings stacked up against one another. You guys, said Beck, who was excited, so she had to fan herself to stop from fainting. I'm pretty sure this is authentic. This is a real Vermeer. How about this one? I said. Because 4 paintings down the row of paintings, I found another copy of the concert. And here's another one of that stolen painting we saw hanging in the card room at the Finster Club. Actually, there's 2 of them. I guess Manet really liked painting that dude with the hat. And Vermeer must have had a thing for harpsichords, I added, after finding 2 more copies of the concert. Either that or he had an excellent copier. Uh-oh. I think they found something more. And that's why we were able to find in one day what the FBI couldn't for more than 3 decades. They're all forgeries. And darn good ones, said Beck. If you guys hadn't found all those extra copies, I would have sworn that this was a real Vermeer. Of course, said Uncle Richie. Simone Buffon must be La Brosse. La who, hey? I asked. La Brosse. It means the brush. La Brosse has long been rumored to be the finest, most expert forger to have ever taken up the brush or pen. She could paint Michelangelo's frescoes on her kitchen ceiling, and you'd swear you were cooking in the Sistine Chapel. And this must be the secret door to her secret studio, said Tommy. And he was at the end of the line of stacked paintings. They had all been leaning against a small metal doorway, maybe 4 feet tall and 2 feet wide. Those smells of turpentine, wood, and paint, they were even stronger near the doorway. And that's where we're going to stop for now on page 272. This is getting so good. There you go, guys. That's the end of our second set of chapters. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you back later in a couple of days for chapter 49, I think is where we are. So have a great weekend. Bye-bye.